Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the review portion for tonight's season finale of Chucky, which was called Chucky Actually. And there's a good reason why that episode was called Chucky Actually. But first, some of the little bits and pieces of information for this episode. And that information is we get a full recap of some of the episodes from last season, some of the episodes from this season, most notably last week's episode, going to the chapel. And we find out that during the scene where Andy's chasing down Dr. Mixer, it's not Dr. Mixer. Oh no, oh no. Chucky had enough time to transfer his soul from the good guy doll to Dr. Mixer. So in that scene where Dr. Mixer is running down the hallway, it's actually Dr. Mixer who's inside the good guy doll, and that's who ended up dying in last week's episode. So Chucky, now in possession of Dr. Mixer's body, goes to her office and opens a safe. And in this safe is a good guy doll. And what ends up happening is there's another transfer of souls. And unfortunately, without there being another soul to inhabit Dr. Mixer's body, Dr. Mixer is dead not once, but twice. We also have a scene in this episode where Lexy is in rehab and she's talking about why she's currently in rehab and she blames her mother. Jake is there to issue support. And then after all is said and done, Jake and Lexi are dropped off at Lake's house, at Lexi's house, sorry, in New Jersey, where upon arrival, they see Lexi's mother, Michelle Cross, and she's a narcissist. She is on social media making videos, trying to get all the attention she can for herself in the world. She's even making a nativity scene for the Christmas holiday, and she's using the Belle doll, which is the one doll that Tiffany has to transfer her soul into as baby Jesus. So Lexi and Jake and Mrs. Cross are inside. Of course, Michelle even tells Jake, please call me Michelle. Don't call me Miss Cross. And Jake's a little bummed out. Yes, he's grateful that he's able to stay with Lexi and Caroline and Mrs. Cross, but he's thinking about Devon. Of course, what he doesn't know is that Devon is actually staying at the Cross household as well. So there's this nice little reunion between the three kids. And then the episode also shifts to the hospital where you see Glenda going into the hospital. There's a security guard posted by Glenn's room. And when Glenda gets in there, Glenn is unconscious. She basically is succumbing to her wounds. And Glenda gets on her cell phone and tells Tiffany, if we're going to do this, we need to do it now because Glenn's not going to make it. So, what ends up happening in this episode is Jennifer Tilly ends up going to the hospital. Of course, remember Jennifer Tilly's body is being possessed by Tiffany. In last week's episode, Jennifer Tilly, who was inside the Belle doll, the doll that was used as Tiffany's body, well, she is no longer alive as far as this episode is concerned. So, what ends up happening is they end up using a piece of luggage to put Glenn's original body the doll body inside the suitcase. Glenda makes another distraction for the security guard, and there's a soul transfer. And now both Glenn and Glenda, at least as far as their human bodies are concerned, are both dead, and their souls have been transferred back into the doll that is now known as Glenn, or as the doll prefers to be called later on in the episode, Gigi. And meanwhile, after that's happened, we go back to the Cross household where they're having Christmas dinner. And prior to them actually having Christmas dinner, Jake actually left the house to go out and get a last minute Christmas gift for Devon since he didn't know that Devon was going to be staying at the house. And he wants Devon to have a Christmas gift. He ends up coming back to the house with the Christmas gift for Devon. Devon opens the Christmas gift from Jake, and it's a podcasting set. It's a small little laptop and a microphone. And of course, Devon says, I'm not really interested in this gift. Thanks, but no thanks for this gift because he's not interested in podcasting anymore. And that is carried over into the next season. Well, I shouldn't say next season, next scene where you have Michelle Cross, you have Caroline, you have Lexy, Jake, and Devin all around the dinner table having Christmas dinner. There's a little bit of an argument, especially when Michelle Cross pulls out her cell phone and wants to take a picture of the group before they have their Christmas meal because of social media and notoriety. And while everybody's having a discussion, which Michelle Cross doesn't appreciate everybody having the kind of discussion that they're having around the Christmas, dinner, around the dinner table. And that conversation is about how narcissistic Michelle Cross is, and also Lexi going through her hard time and battling her addiction to drugs. So that's going on. Jake and Devin during this whole thing do eventually make up, but there's another thing that's going on while all this is going on inside the Cross household. You see Chucky now back in the soul of the good guy doll, back inside that house, back inside, you know, his new body of that good guy doll. He's looking through a catalog, like an old Sears Roebuck catalog where you would look through, you see different items that were being advertised for, the Christmas holiday, whether it be toys, whether it be kitchen appliances, tools, you name it. And speaking of tools, he comes across an electric chainsaw, and it says that it's very quiet. Now, keep in mind, this chainsaw is ordered by Chucky via Chucky using a credit card, and it plays a factor in what happens next in the episode. But before I go up to that part of what happened in the episode, we do have a scene where it's Lexi, Jake, and Devin. Lexi's in her bed. The boys are lying on the floor on sleeping bags, and they're having a conversation saying how much they mean to one another, especially Devin and Jake. And of course, Devin and Jake, they're lying on the floor in their sleeping bags. And of course, they're underneath the mistletoe and they start kissing. Well, meanwhile, what they don't know is that Jennifer Tilly is showing up, and she's showing up because she wants that Belle doll. So she goes up to the nativity scene, and she sees that the Belle doll isn't inside the basket. So she goes to the backyard of the house, opens up the sliding door, which is unlocked for some reason, steps into the house, starts walking through, and of course, it awakens Michelle Cross. Michelle Cross is overly excited about Jennifer Tilly just barging in, breaking and entering into her house. and mentions last season where Michelle Cross, when she was mayor of Hackensack, New Jersey, was having the Monster Movie Festival at the theater, where unfortunately Mr. Cross lost his life along with Junior Wheeler. And, she's overly excited. Well, guess who came down the chimney at this time? I think you all know he's redhead. He's a good guy doll. He's got a devious laugh. Yep, that's right. Chucky, with his chainsaw, had already entered the house, coming down the chimney. And as Michelle Cross is getting ready to take a selfie with Jennifer Tilly, that's when Chucky slices her down the middle with the chainsaw. And there's an exchange between both Chucky and Tiffany. Of course, Chucky's all, "What are you doing here?" Of course, Tiffany says, "You're supposed to be dead." And of course, Chucky says, "Well, of course I'm not dead. I always have a backup plan." And what ends up happening is Lexy comes down, and when she comes down the stairs, she sees her dead mother split in two, and she ends up taking the chainsaw from Chucky and slicing him in half. And then a few other pieces as well after slicing them in half. Meanwhile, Tiffany takes the opportunity to go upstairs and look for the Bell doll. She ends up finding the Bell doll, and that's when Jake and Devon go after her, and they have their butcher knives and they start cutting her. And Jennifer Tilly starts to get away. And just when you think she's going to be cornered and the kids are going to have their victory because they're going to call the cops, well, guess what? There's a wrench thrown in the situation when Caroline walks right next to Jennifer Tilly. Jennifer Tilly takes a butcher knife and holds it right up to Caroline, and Caroline says, "You know, I finally understand why I didn't belong here, because I didn't fit in, because the person who was my mommy wasn't my mommy." And she looks at Lexi and says to Lexi that Lexi isn't her sister. So what ends up happening is Lexi's trying to talk Caroline out of it, and you find out that Chucky brainwashed Caroline. And Caroline ends up going with Tiffany. Tiffany and Caroline get into Tiffany's car and they drive away. There's a scene with the police at the Cross household and they're questioning the kids. And that's when the kids are told they're going to have to go into foster care because Lexi no longer has any next to kin. And Lexi's more concerned about finding Caroline and doing what you can do to get Caroline herself. Unfortunately, there's no immediate family to take the kids, but their teacher from last season, I forgot her name, but she actually comes and takes the kids. And then we get a scene in Times Square in New York where we see Jennifer Tilly go from being a bleach blonde to a brunette with a new hairdo, new wig. And you see Caroline reading Voodoo for Dummies. And that's when Tiffany is going to attempt to do the soul transfer into the Bell doll. But guess what? It's not working. And she keeps trying and trying, and it's still not working. She's saying, "Possess, possess, possess," and it's not working. She even hits the Bell doll. Well, guess what? It's not a Bell doll, it's a good guy doll. It's Chucky, always with that backup plan. And he starts laughing and he starts mocking Tiffany. He takes out a butcher knife, and the last thing we see before the camera cuts to black is the butcher knife coming toward the camera. There is no teaser as far as whether or not there's going to be a season 3 of the show, but as far as we know, we've definitely got a cliffhanger here. So we'll have to wait and see if the show's renewed for a third season. And like I said, unlike last season, where after the credits rolled after episode 8 of season 1 and we were teased with season 3, we didn't get that. So, overall, this wasn't a bad episode. This did have some silly parts, but overall, it wasn't a bad episode. It did have some moments where, for those of you who were watching during the live reaction review, where I went, "Oh, come on." But overall, it was entertaining. And that's all one could ask for. It was entertaining, but just because it was entertaining doesn't mean I'm gonna give it a high rating. If I were to give this episode a rating, I'd give it a 3 out of 5. It's watchable. And it's not, an episode I'm gonna go on the top of the hill and praise about, but it's watchable. It's definitely watchable. So, I want to thank everybody for watching the live reaction, of course, watching this review portion. That's going to be it. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.